All right, looks like it's 12 o'clock Central Time. Depending on where you're joining us, good afternoon, maybe good morning. We're so glad to have you join us today um, for our second part of our webinar series of Building a Dream Team. Lisa and I will be talking about utilizing assessments to evaluate talent today. So really excited to talk with the group about this and really dive into how to use assessments in the hiring process, the benefits of assessments, and some of the things to be aware of. Before we jump into the content, we will just go over a couple of housekeeping items. So for those of you who aren't familiar with GoToWebinar, we will be asking you to drop questions via the questions portal. If you go to the top of the screen, it's on the right-hand side in the toolbar. So submit questions. You can also drop things in the chat. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to do that. And then we will leave some time at the end to go over specific questions that you have as a follow-up to the content. If we don't get to your questions, we will certainly follow up with you after the webinar. We will also be doing a couple of poll questions throughout the webinar, so you'll see those pop up on your screen throughout. And we will have codes as well for our CPE and our HRE credit. So let me just... There we go. So we will be tracking our CPE and HRCI credit through conferences.io. And as you can see, you can either scan the QR code or log into sikich.cnf.io. So to receive full credit, you will need to enter all codes throughout the session, and we will be announcing, this is code number 1, code number 2. So let's practice that. We have our first code. One of 3, this is 171. Again, you can enter this code by pasting the Sikich events link at the bottom of the screen or by scanning the QR code on the screen as well. And if you have any questions about conferences.io or questions about getting that credit, please submit through our questions feature on the control panel, and we will get back to you with that. Right. Then just another housekeeping item, quick disclaimer, this presentation contains general information only based on HR best practices. It does not constitute legal advice or professional services. So please take a second, briefly scan this slide. And then lastly, at the conclusion of the webinar, a short survey will launch, and we'd love your feedback. So if you are able to hang on, it takes about 60 seconds, and submit some feedback at the survey at the end of the presentation, that'd be great. All right, let's jump into the good stuff. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Fisher. I lead the Talent Solutions team at Sikich. Our team offers advisory services to assist organizations in planning, designing, and integrating talent acquisition strategies into a sustainable model. So really, we focus on helping our clients develop, attract, and retain the right talent for their organization. With me today is Lisa Trujillo, a seasoned professional with more than 2 decades of experience in the talent acquisition field. Lisa has excellent experience navigating the complexities of different industry sectors, including government defense, hospitality, renewable energy, and dynamic startup enterprises. So we are thrilled to have you here today. And then just a quick overview, if you're not familiar with Sikich, we are a global company specializing in technology-enabled professional services with over 1,900 employees. We are now in multiple countries and have been servicing clients for 40 years. And as I mentioned, our team falls under that advisory pillar. And so we are a member of the Human Capital Management and Payroll Consulting team within our advisory practice at Sikich. All right, jumping into the content, let's get to the good stuff here. So today's agenda will be talking about how to evaluate the different assessments and things to consider when you're looking at what assessments to use and which ones would work best, and the different type of assessments that work best for different positions. We'll also talk about some of the benefits of using assessments, what they can do for your hiring process, how they can help, and really how they can impact your strategic talent acquisition function. And then we'll also be covering some common misconceptions about assessments. There's a lot of them out there, and so Lisa and I are going to debunk some of those. And then we'll be finishing with best practices for applications of assessments. So just to make sure everyone's warmed up, we'll start off with a poll question here. And so if you can come back to the screen, if you've moved away, we would love your input on this question. And it's just, are you currently using assessments in your hiring practice? So yes, for all roles, yes, for some roles. No, you're not currently using it, but you're considering it. No, you are not using it or considering it, or unsure. And we'll give everyone just a minute to answer this one. Wow, we have a really even split going on here.
Yeah.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
All right, we have about 90% of the votes in. So it looks like a lot of you, about 40% are either using assessments for all roles or for some roles. So that's good to hear. About 18% are not currently using them, but considering introducing them. And then about 18% aren't using them and are not considering at this time, with 22% being unsure. So really all over the board there. And that helps Lisa and I kind of get a pulse on where we're at and speak to some of those things if you are considering or if you are using them. So thank you. And I will now hand it over to Lisa to get started talking about assessments and their purpose in the hiring process.
Thank you, Laura. Well, greetings, everyone. So we're going to just dive right on in here. So as we are looking at and talking about that in pre-employment assessments, and it sounds like many of you, half of you are using it, and the other half of the audience here is unsure or maybe considering. So really comes stemming from the question is, how do you determine who to hire? We all know hiring process can never be 100% accurate, but we can definitely strive to be as predictive as possible. And this is where pre-employment tests come in, having kind of that objective, standardized way to gather more information about your candidates during the hiring process. Today, we are at, finding top talent is a challenge at times. Scarcity of the talent, or for some of those positions, finding the skill gaps between applicants. Not to mention, there's a rise of falsification on resumes. There's a report about 78%. So again, if your recruitment models are not up to date and not using the best interview practices, operating with traditional hiring methods, unstructured interviews, which really can be influenced by unconscious bias, are just really not reliable. So organizations that really want to make that effective hiring choices, such as increased productivity, reducing that employee turnover, is really going to contribute to positively kind of that financial, increasing your financials, getting a well, healthy, built, diverse team, and having people there for the long haul. So by leveraging and using your pre-employment assessment testing and modern screening screening technologies, you can really streamline your hiring process and have a stronger predictor in hiring the best candidates who align with the organization's needs. So with that, so which assessment is really right for you? There's a lot out there. We'll be going through that today. But as we're looking at the different types of assessments, you're going to need to understand, okay, which one do I want to have that's going to help shape and develop our bright, diverse workforce? So in the last few decades, pre-employment assessments have really continued to rise and are really shaping the landscape and how we hire for talent. So there was a study done by Criteria Corporation. They also provide many assessment models. They did a study recently, and 82% of organizations are administering pre-employment tests in some form. And again, this suggests really the vast majority of organizations who are really leaning into using this and putting it into their hiring practices. So when it comes to evaluating assessments, again, it's looking at how we can choose and select to really make those informed hiring decisions, leading to those better outcomes for the organization as well holistically for your workforce. So we'll kind of start as, when using assessments, it could be for your hiring, it could be where you're looking to promote somebody, but having an effective assessments are crucial for an organization that's going to help strive for that productivity, reduce the turnover. So for one, you've got the pre-employment assessment for one screening candidates. So this is really going to help screen out the candidates as far as if they don't meet the job skill requirements for that particular role. It's really going to help you save down on time on resources by kind of pulling in the right funnel of candidates that are most likely going to succeed in the position. Another is identifying skills and abilities. A lot of these assessments really predominantly are around that and centered around that, such as their job skill knowledge, relevancy to the job role, technical proficiency, problem solving, communication. It's really going to ensure how the candidate possesses the necessary competencies to perform effectively in the job role. And then predicting job performance. So this is really usually kind of another hallmark is predicting how well a candidate is going to perform in their role. That could be the personality traits, cognitive abilities, job related, and it really helps employers kind of making those informed decisions about a candidate and they're likely to be able to succeed long term in the role. Another is a culture fit. Again, evaluating candidates really so they fit within the company culture, its values. It really helps you ensure how the new hire will integrate with the existing team and is going to align with the organization's goals and mission. Another assessment could be used for development and training needs. So this is where any additional training or development, once the individual is hired, it really allows employers to proactively kind of address some of those skill gaps and kind of investing in the professional growth of your employees as well. From a legal compliance, all of the assessments out there really uphold high standards, and they should because they're being scrutinized and vetted as well from employers looking at them, but they provide a very fair, consistent, tried and true. So most of these vendors that are providing these pre-employment assessments have gone through a lot of scrutiny evaluations themselves. They kind of uphold to the standards of educational psychological testing. You have IO psychologists, psychometricians. There's a lot of core competency design, testing, validation, intelligence. So again, these tests are really going through the scrutiny to making sure they're going to be able to assess these intangible qualities that we're looking to gain. But overall, your pre-employment assessments really kind of provide this invaluable insight that's really going to help you make informed hiring decisions, leading to better outcomes for both the organization and your employees.
Yeah, Lisa, and I would say just a clarification, most or all of the ones that we'll be talking about today have been vetted and are
Yes.
thoroughly um, vetted and kind of tried and true. But there are homegrown systems out there. There are tons of new providers coming out all the time. I mean, thousands of them, and not all of them are truly evaluated and analyzed and for validity and reliability. So something to keep in mind. Make sure that if you are going with a newer or smaller company, you've kind of got that covered.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so we've got another little poll question here. And for you, what is your number one factor? Again, some of you did answer as far as you are using some of those assessments. So what are some of those things you are considering, whether it's determining culture fit, better predict job success, test for specific job skills, technical knowledge, development, decreasing turnover? Oh, we got a kind of another good mix here. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of job skill, which is great, predicting overall job success, some development. Wow, great. Got about 74 in, most of you, most of half of you. So that's really great to see. I mean, yes, as you can see, I mean, these assessments that's great that you're using it to kind of predicting for that job success, the technical knowledge, the job skills, a little bit on the development purpose. Looks like we got some percentages on the culture. And then, of course, by having an assessment, you're going to have hopefully less turnover. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
interesting numbers. Great. All right. All right, we've got another code session. Looks like it's 551. If y'all want to put that into the on there.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So as we're looking at the pre-employment assessments, we kind of first need to understand the difference between some of these pre-employment assessments. A lot of them are built and based around from cognitive, people skills. Separate other tests are separately from just personality. But on the cognitive that's when it's really, these tests are pulling in as far as on those accurate predictors of job performance, which is going to be most critical to your positions in mid-level, high-level leadership roles. And they're really developed to pull in how does one think from problem solving, logical reasoning, critical thinking, ability to learn, some of that attention to detail. The people side of the skills is really coming in of asking more and pulling out of how well does this person work from a teamwork setting. Do they have the patience, good communication skills, adaptability, empathy? If you have, leaders and management, conflict management. So those are all really good frameworks as you are looking at some of these pre-employment assessments. Personality tests, I'm sure you've heard a lot of them. They've been tried and true. They also are good to use. They are still highly used, but they're being now more supplemental into the job predictor assessments. So some of these personality tests you've heard of, probably maybe of Myers-Briggs, your DISC. A lot of these cover kind of those big five personality traits, such as agreeableness, conscientiousness, if the person's extroversion, open, stress tolerance. Um, but with personality tests, they really don't measure, they're really not helpful to measure somebody's predictor of job performance. There was a study done by the personal psychology, and they did make that claim saying they're not going to predict if someone's going to work very well in the job role, whereas cognitive ability tests, those other job performance tests can do and really dig into that. But really, your personality tests are really measurements of more of kind of someone's personality traits, such as their strength, weakness. Are they an extrovert, introvert? So really, it's kind of more of assessing of how well and comfortable will this person feel in their job role. Another one is the skill test and those job knowledge. The skill test is more of the computer typing test, could be technical tests, maybe it could be a verbal math, depending on the person's role. But those are really more kind of identifying of the aptitude of what the person has gained, those acquired knowledge throughout their work history. So that's kind of more of on previous experience of what they've learned. But those are also can be administered as well too. Some other ones that aren't maybe shared as popular or heard about, but there's honesty, integrity tests, situational, safety, and medical. The honesty, integrity, these are really more for on the line level that can be issued. It's to kind of ensure so employers, if they want to avoid tardiness, absenteeism, if there's any theft, fraud, there's those kind of things that it's really trying to eliminate the counterproductive behavior. Situational judgment, those are kind of more those workplace scenarios. How does someone prioritize their task, handle pressure? Do they follow instructions? So those are those situational judgment assessments that are built in. And then safety, there's not a lot of those that use that often, but it can be used for, it's really more kind of to reduce some workplace issues, whether if it comes to really more of that. Ensuring that you don't have injuries on the job, safety, kind of those OSHA kind of compliance. So those can be pulled in. And then your medical, depending on the role, those are really more for those physical labor roles that would really require that type of physical ability needed in the job. So how common are they? Um, So there was a release, a study done by Criteria from their own customers. And again, some of you may or may not be using Criteria, but 91% are using those cognitive aptitude tests. Those are those predictor of job performance, followed by the personality. Then you can see the skill tests and some of those integrity tests. So really kind of the hallmark is at those cognitive aptitude tests. It's taking the
Yeah,
lead.
and I think the integrity tests, they can be pretty common in the retail setting. So anyone
Yes,
dealing with
yes,
cash,
great one.
yeah, or in a restaurant.
Yep, absolutely. So if you're wondering, and a lot of you, it sounded like when you responded, are using these assessment tests. So there was a market research done by Global Study, and this was just a year ago. It is a $2.3 billion industry. It's projected to go to 7.4 billion in 2032. So exponential growth here. So I really, this is something where assessments, the conversation, do we want to use it into our hiring practice, post-hiring practice? It's just continuing to get bigger and bigger across the globe. So it's really paramount to kind of really maybe start looking at this if you are considering or thinking about considering using assessment. But it's one that's definitely growing in our industry. So the 73% there you see, LinkedIn did a study that again, there's been a much increase of skill-based hiring, and it is on the rise. So by using assessments, going to really help complement that. Um, SHRM did a study about 16, over 1,600 members, asking if they have used pre-employment assessments to measure the job, the individual's jobs, their knowledge, their skills, their abilities, that application. And 56% out of the 1,600 that were surveyed said yes. So again, it is on the rise. It is increasing. It's going to be starting to be more and more in your talent framework and your to utilize as your best hiring as well as post approach when you're interacting and building your workforce. Again, another study was done by Indeed. They pulled this from a psychometric testing from a data set. Over the, again, next few years, 88%, it's going to continue to grow. Some of the roles you can see that are being used for these assessments, 59% for your entry level positions, 72% for the middle management, and 80% for senior roles. So a big push for when you are looking to be, if you're considering or using it, a lot of it's for your leadership roles, management, and even it's on the rise for your line level. All right. So for those of you who answered earlier, if you've used assessments, thinking about it, not using it, would love to have you put in the chat, just kind of curious to know what vendors or what assessments you are using. And if you'd like to share that, please do so and put in the chat and we'll kind of pull it up as it's coming up. We'll see who's all using what.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, there's so many platforms out there,
Yeah,
and so it can be hard to determine which ones
daunting.
are the best. Yeah, exactly. So we're
Uh-huh.
going to take a little bit of time and go through the different platforms and even show a couple sample reports from some of those.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I didn't get any takers to see if they wanted to share who they were using. Uh, that's all right. Well, we've got you can see who we've got on the board. If there's anyone on here that you are using, please share. Okay. So these are the ones that are tried and true kind of in the market. They've been out there for kind of a mix between of some that have been really in the market for a long period of time, other in that middle kind of space, and other some of the new ones that are taking some leads and all have been under some great validation and testing. So a lot of these will provide different languages. So if your company is global, they have obviously started to put that in there to be more inclusive. And again, a lot of these platforms are very cost effective. Some have bigger plans from a financial cost to if you are going to be using it, but it really depends on what you're looking for. Predictive Index, you may or may not have heard of it. They've been out there for a very long time. Daniels, who's one of the founding of PI Worldwide, ended up changing it. Actually, Predictive Index was 1955. So now today, it's fast forward, it's now called Predictive Index. They're a global organization. They partner with about 1,000 partners across the 140 countries, serving a lot of different of their clients groups. And they do provide over 8,000 of client organizations with many. These are Fortune 500 companies with different assessment testing. They really focus on the behavioral assessment test. So their kind of framework is off on dominance, extroversion, patience, formality, and they've been conducting these tests, over hundreds of different clients and validation studies, and it really demonstrates the relationship between the assessment results and the job performance. So a lot of success that companies are finding and reporting back of by using this. Um, HireVue, another one, they've been around for 20 years. They do a lot of, again, that job behavioral assessment. They've also built in some of the video interviewing. They've also got conversational AI. Laura will be talking about the AI section. That is up and coming. Scheduling, structured interviews. So again, they have been in the market, and they also do have, when you are looking and shopping around for for assessments, depending on your HRS system, some of these will have a certain partnership. HireVue does have a certified partnership with Workday. So that's another thing of a good component if you're using from the front end to the back end and you're using as assessments kind of a full end to end. Great people, PXT Select. They, again, another one, excellent one for job fit, talent selection. They really measure the job related qualities, kind of looking at how the person can be productive, their thinking style, reasoning style, behavioral, occupational interest. They also offer assessments in 360-degree leadership evaluation. So that's wonderful. So when you do use it from the front end, it kind of can continue to connect and tie in of how the person's performing. Are they ready? Kind of looking at those skill gaps. Are they ready to take on that next leadership role? They've been known to save companies from retention. So from 12 to 8, $12 million of saving and hiring costs. So great retention tool, and they're very proud of that. So clients who do use this really are starting to see, gosh, this is a great value. Hi people, they're kind of new in the market, but they've been getting some really great ratings. Again, another skill-based hiring. They're usually more for the higher volume. And again, so that kind of goes back to what are the roles? what are the positions that you're going to be looking to hire, and what's going to be that right assessment. So these guys are really good for some of that higher volume of higher just high volume recruitment. Their industries, they focus in healthcare, technology. They do a lot of BPO and outsourcing as well. iMocha, kind of a fun name there. Again, another new one up and coming, but they've gotten some great recognition and traction out there. These are for companies kind of ultimately who are international, who want to adopt kind of that skill first approach for their recruitment. So a lot of learning, development. They also include workforce planning, internal mobility. If you're looking for people, where can I reposition them at another location? Or inside in your organization. So they do a lot of that. And again, some of their clients have been from like as big names as, from PayPal, Coupa, Vanguard. So they're up and coming. And then on the technology side, there's a lot of great technology assessments that are out there. Again, tried and true, done a lot of validation testing. So again, your FANG, your Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, they use Candio. And again, what they use Candio for is a lot of the validation and testing to seeing if this person has strong backend framework. So that's your C++, your Java, Ruby on Rails, web development. They also have the testing for that, digital marketing. Another technical one is DevSkiller. Again, high tech roles. It's really kind of looking at if the person can be able to have those strong technical skills. Again, they're a little smaller, so they're starting to, they don't have, may have not as different, a lot of models to select from, but they do have a technical assessment. And then HackerRank, they offer a library of different role-based certification assessments. So again, a lot of your artificial intelligence, machine learning. So when you are hiring for those type of future roles, cloud, cybersecurity, software engineering, web development, again, they're another strong force out there. Athena, they do more, again, back to kind of from retail, another one to really use for retail. So that's one, if you have more of kind of those um, hospitality ones, this would be a good one to use. They've had some great client success stories where they were able to reduce turnover about 50%. So when you get those line levels and, oh my gosh, we have turnover and we can't find people, this is one to be really maybe take a consideration. And then Mercer Metal, they've been around in the business, same thing as Predictive Index, a long time. Coding, hiring, they do a lot of 360. They have those psychometric assessments, your aptitude assessments, technical communications, sales, coding, and so forth. So, and then last but not least, Wonderlic, again, another one. They do more of, again, job performance. They're kind of a little smaller shop, but can provide the same equal value as some of these other ones.
Yeah,
So what
they've
are these? Oh, yeah, go
oh no,
ahead.
Wonderlick's been around forever, and I think is probably pretty well known. But we did have a couple individuals say they use Culture Index in the
Oh,
chat.
yeah, yeah,
So another
awesome.
popular
Another
one.
good one. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
been
There's
around for a
so
while.
many. I didn't
I
want to
know.
mark it up too much, but yeah, that is another one that does offer that. So that's another great tool. Just to kind of give you of what these look like for some of you that have not used it or considering to use, these are kind of what it looks like. So these are the reports you will receive from HR, the talent team, and then some of the reports they have that can be shared for you in house, and then the reports that here's what if you want to share with your hiring manager. So again, really have a good front end to have great data just right there, very clean. Another one with high people, again, you'll start to see that AI interactive. So you'll get the reports and then you can actually use the AI to be able to say, hey, I need some more information. Can you pull up a summary report? So very interactive tool, very cool. They've been around and it's another great way to get that information on the go and as well as if you're in the office. So high match, again, another showing again their dashboard, how it looks for on those results from the assessments. Again, looking at when you get these results from when the candidate does respond, it gives you some great, a lot of these will give you those questions to ask during the interview. So it kind of pulls in, let's take a deeper dive into this. And so they will be able to serve up other additional questions for the recruitment team, hiring team, and even can be able to use from some of these dashboards for on the back end. So when someone does get into the organization, how are we looking for some of those performance models and being able to really help build up your workforce. So again, a lot of these are very clean. Hacker rank, another one from a technical one I just wanted to share, kind of what it looks like if you're hiring for a software engineer and so forth. So
Yeah, and I thought the high match example was so interesting.
yeah,
That it's obviously a sales position here that we're using as
yeah,
an example, but money
mm,
motivated and
yeah,
scoring someone on that is just you don't think about it, but money motivated, competitiveness, relationship oriented, resilience, those are all things that are really important if you're hiring a salesperson. So really
absolutely.
interesting. I thought that one was
Yes.
particularly insightful.
So let's talk about some of these misconceptions here. There's again a lot, and you may have others that aren't on here as well, but sometimes when people are going, well, I don't know if they're going to be really reliable. Do I really need them? They're not maybe as accurate, but really assessments do go through a true validation testing. They've got years of experience, so really in tried and true, they are well designed. And if you do use a well designed assessment, it's going to provide really that long term retention. It's going to motivate teams. It's going to, pull in the best hire for you. And again, that's kind of what's really key about it. Other misconceptions, hey, I can go build one, kind of, or they're one size fits all, kind of all in the same, which really not true. A lot of these assessments are built around and how the people respond. So individuals truly have diverse learning styles, they have different backgrounds, abilities. So by using some of these customized assessments, really is going to accommodate those different needs and preferences and can lead into really more of those meaningful results. And again, it's great to partner with different organizations who do provide a variety of different assessments for you to choose and select what's going to be the right one for you, and can again provide that full scope that's being assessed. So you have good, reliable information and have valid information, so you can make those, business decisions of who you're going to select and hire into your organization. Again, anyone can build it. I don't recommend doing that. Again, it could be a risk if you're building it. It could be detrimental to the candidate experience, how you're administering it from the overall recruitment process, and really could lead up to potential legal. So again, these other assessments do go through a lot of scrutiny, um, federal compliance. I mean, they do abide by like laws, and so in trying to reduce any bias and really make sure they're on the up and up. Another misconception is that they're static, they really don't change. Um, Not true. They really have a good, steady kind of yes and no. I mean, there's a more consistency from the results you have. Someone came in for a particular role, now is looking for a leadership role. It's been a few years. Yes, you may want to see and maybe run another kind of model set. There might be some slight changes, or again, you're asking maybe different questions because now they're moving into a leadership. So again, there might be some parallel. The biggest thing where you would have a change from one, a dramatic change from one to another, is there have been studies such as major life events. So you get married, you get a divorce, an employment change, job loss, having a child, if you or someone else is ill. So a lot of these can impact how your certain stimuli and how you feel and your belief system. So those can have those types of changes where it would change if you had some of those bigger life events. Um, all assessments measure the same thing. Um, Basically, many companies provide different assessments, so there's different types of measurements, so not as all the same. So really you're measuring, again, back to your cognitive, technical, if you're using personality. So again, they're all different types of different assessments to you, so not all one and the same. Again, these assessment test, what's the difference between that and test? They can be interchangeably used. Really, the test is a measure of a right and wrong answer, like an SAT, I mean, or something that's really factual. Whereas assessments really focus on the perspective of the individual, so there's no definitive right or wrong answer, because it's all very unique and how it's the person answering the question. Another pass fail as an in all, really no, a person's predictive behavior is really what motivates, drives them, their level of emotional intelligence. So it is not a pass fail. And when you're using it, it's really kind of looking at a holistic approach of how this person is. So it's not to use as this is how they answered this. They didn't get 100% or 90%. We're not going to hire them. It's really kind of more of an evaluate. It's another kind of key point measurement, but not a complete 100% determination saying, I need to hire this person or not, just if they got a percentage grade. Assessments are discriminatory. Um, yeah, again, this could be where if you are having an assessment test that's going to measure on your gender, creed, run away. But no, assessments do not and should not be measuring of any race, gender, creed, religion, any types of discrimination. That is a big no-no. So they try to stay away from that. Another is if they're expensive. Most of these assessment tests can range anywhere from $80 up to $300. Some of the other bigger companies, depending on your enterprise, how large your organization, can come up to your 5 to 10K, but it's really depending on what is the functionality? Are you using some of those other performance models? Are you using leadership? So there's a lot more components of these bigger assessment platforms and vendors. So it really depends on how big and what are some of all the functionality you might or may not be using. Um, so yeah, so move on
Yeah,
to
and I think
code.
it's also just such a good ROI if you're decreasing
Yes,
turnover and making better hires. A little bit extra cost at the front end is going to help save money in the long run. So that's something that we, always want clients to consider is that yes, there is a cost associated with it, but you're making a better, more informed hiring decision. So
absolutely. Yes. All right. 795. I think it's our third and last code of the day.
And if any, oh, we do have a question. I was just going to say, if anyone has questions, please drop them in the chat. Which platform was the first sample report from? I believe that was
PXT?
PXC. Yeah, the
Yes.
PXC Select, that's by
Uh-huh.
Wiley. So that measures a couple different components of a candidate, cognitive ability, um, their behavioral, and then also interests. And we will make sure to send the deck out too after we wrap up, so everyone can have those for reference.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, moving on. It's hard not to talk about AI technology as we're talking about some of these things. So, one thing that Lisa brought up and a big benefit to assessments now, and probably part of the reason why we're seeing such a rise in the use is because assessments can offer a vital counterbalance to job seekers' use of AI in their own materials. So employers certainly aren't the only ones tapping into generative AI to aid their hiring processes. Job seekers are really using the technology, particularly when it comes to enhancing job applications and resumes. We've heard this from, clients before, and, well, they're all starting to look the same. All the resumes are starting to kind of look the same, and it's because AI can craft, such a polished and compelling resume and cover letter that, candidates, and whether it's, misinformation or just presenting themselves in the best light, it's, kind of comes with the unintended consequences of everyone looking the same and making it difficult to pick out the unique differences in the applicants. So really an assessment can help break through the AI driven uniformity and allow employers to pinpoint candidates who possess those crucial skills through looking at some of the data-driven insights and trends, modeling predictions through adaptive machine learning. So, again, assessments are even more useful and predictive when we can have the model for success shift as the role shifts or the business shifts, it's really going to shed more light on it. And then really the where AI assessments can really assist is the soft skills and critical thinking, because those are things that are hard to convey on a resume or paper application. So the soft skills, the critical thinking, the behavior style, which I want to share a little bit more with you about, as well as some of the other AI assessments. So Lisa talked a little bit about the platforms for coding and hackers. So those are coding challenges and more of your, you know, coming up with the different technical aspects, if and again really used for web developers and mostly in the IT application space. Game-based assessments are becoming more common, and a big reason those are picking up in popularity is because it's a better candidate experience. Instead of feeling like you're taking a test, it's a little bit, it's not a true video game, but it's a little bit more interactive and fun, and the candidate doesn't feel as daunted by a game-based assessment. And then the emotional intelligence assessments, really interesting. um, there is one out there, and I believe it's Criterion. I know we've talked about them and referenced them a lot. I believe it's through them, but it's called Emotify, and it actually um, determines the candidates interact. It interacts with them, so it determines their expressions and judges how they empathize with others, how they perceive themselves and others. So it's really looking at that EI. And that's again something that is hard to really dig into and evaluate from a resume or even an interview. So using those to solve problems, and compare results with influence from a self-report or other potential bias is really becoming popular. And then just
Yeah.
the yeah, I don't know if
I
you've
was going
heard
to
of.
say there was a question that came up. It asked, are there more assessment companies using AI technology? And yes, it's going to be I don't want to say 100%, but I'm going to say it's going to get very close to that. So if they don't have some of that foundation technology baked into their platform, yeah, eventually it's going to be there. So it'll be
Yeah.
very interactive.
Yeah, and I think all of them are using some sort of
Most of them.
AI, and then more and more are using the generative AI, which is really
Yep.
picking up the,
Hmm.
more of the machine learning. But yeah, just a lot of things to kind of keep in mind. And, again, as technology advances, the more sophisticated these pre-employment assessments will become. And it really helps to better evaluate candidates' skills, abilities, their suitability for different positions. But again, essential to make sure that the assessments are unbiased, accurately measuring relevant competencies required for the job, and ensuring that you have are administering them consistently and fairly. All right, I know we're running a little short on time. Please continue to drop the questions in the chat, and we'll kind of wrap up and leave a few minutes at the end. But want to talk a bit about application of assessments. So Lisa and I talked about the different kinds of assessments, and all the different things they can measure, the benefits, the rising usage. And so really once you say, okay, we're going to use assessments, we want to talk about how you um, start using it, what your baseline is to introduce it as a selection tool, how you can leverage the data in the interview and the hiring process, and then also how you can leverage that data post-hire to really, again, increase that retention, decrease turnover. So
And I was going to say, I mean, you don't have to think, oh my gosh, we have to use it for every single job, every single. I mean, you could start small, just saying, hey, we're going to take this particular group. Maybe there's a lot of high turnover. Let's get this on this one focus, this one group, one department, one division, whatever it might be, or one evergreen role, whatever it might be. you don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to use this for every single role out there. So you can start small. And as you
Yeah.
start small, kind of get one kind of concentrated group, department, team, whatever that is. And then you can start seeing the results, the value, and start testing that and looking at the data internally to saying, oh my gosh, this is working. Okay, great. And then you can start layering in or expanding out these assessments into other positions.
Well,
So don't
yeah,
feel like you got to do it for all. You can start small.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, yeah, that's just it. And I even have that bullet. But using it
There you go.
consistently. So as Lisa
Yeah.
said, she's exactly right. If you say, hey, we have really, really, high turnover in our sales organization, and we want to introduce this for sales positions, that is no problem, but just making sure that you're doing it then with all sales candidates from a given period of time so that it's consistent. But you really want to start with what is our strategy? What are we trying to accomplish? So again, great example. If there's high turnover, and you realize, hey, I think we're making some hiring decisions that aren't working out. That is one reason. And kind of going back to the poll before, start with the strategy. If you're saying, hey, we hire great people, but we're not seeing leadership potential in our hires. So we really want to be able to assess not just can they do the job they're being considered for, but can they do the next job and the next job? Again, you're going to look at a different assessment tool. And so really making sure that your selection of the tool is thoughtful and aligned with your talent acquisition strategy, what are the challenges in the organization. If you say, well, we just think we should do an assessment, and we're just going to randomly pick one, that's not going to be as helpful. It may aid overall to some more informed hiring decisions, but really being strategic in aligning those predictors with the job and the success and kind of what's currently going on in your workforce, and then using them in the interview process. So um, we always say, and as Lisa, mentioned earlier, an assessment is not or should not be used is a completely pass fail. There are some of them that are used as screening techniques in a little bit different way, and those are kind of niche. But overall, when we're looking at these kind of holistic assessments that are really analyzing behavior, personality, cognitive ability, skills, um, emotional intelligence, it should be used as a piece of the evaluation process. So an additional data point for you to have when you're weighing the decision and making the hire. And then that also allows you to have more effective interviews. So, if your process, we always recommend, hey, have a first interview, at least make sure the, candidate, passes the screen, and then have them take the assessment. And now you know more about that candidate, and you can ask them questions that a little bit more probing questions based off of their assessment results. If you know where their strengths are, you don't need to ask them 5 questions about that. You know from the assessment that they're pretty strong in the area. Dig into the areas where they're not as strong, and ask them pointed questions. And there's a lot of them out there. I know Predictive Index, PXT, they will give you interview questions to say, hey, here's where they're falling short based on the job performance model. Here's a couple questions you can ask them. So a lot of these organizations will kind of give you those questions, but I think that's really how you get the most out of them and really how you integrate it into your process. And then, kind of as a wrap up, using the assessments post-hire. So in onboarding and development and retention, this has been shown to prove employee satisfaction, performance, retention. It assists managers with employee coaching and onboarding. If they know that someone on their team is very structured and really likes that structure, they should be sure that they have maybe a little bit more scheduled and structured, onboarding process, and because they're not going to do well with something that's super fluid or flexible, just as an example. And then it also helps identify the talent gaps. Again, there's no candidate is perfect. I've never seen someone score, perfect, exactly aligned with the model. There's always going to be a couple of areas where, they maybe need to leverage other resources. So then where the gaps are, and you can focus on, hey, they're not strong, and they're not super strong in the creative space, but they have really strong attention to detail. Let's get them on projects that leverage that. So just really kind of using them beyond the hiring process onto onboarding and development, super helpful. And definitely, I know Lisa and I could probably share a whole nother webinar on that, but we wanted to touch on it and at least mention it. So just a couple key takeaways, and then please submit questions, comments, any that you have. But again, not all assessments are created equal. Be strategic and thorough when selecting and implementing assessments. While assessments can improve hiring decisions, interviews and other evaluation methods are still critical in the hiring process. They are not a magic bullet. They're not going to, be the end all be all. Leverage data and insights from assessments to advance people analytics within your organization. So really using that data in a thoughtful way, again, beyond hiring. And then the most important, ensure that the assessments you're using and their applications are tested for reliability and validity.
Yeah. And one of you did ask, what was assessment that showed the example of the sales position? That was high people, like HI people. And they're not shy to show. I mean, from what I'm showing you, you can go to their website and they'll show you the different reports. But that was the one that had the sales example that I had where you
Yeah.
could pull different information.
All
Yeah.
right. Any additional
Yeah.
questions? Submit your questions. Again, there's a lot of assessments out there. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of promises. So it can be challenging and daunting to kind of cut through the noise and really figure out if you're interested or considering using assessments, really to figure out which one's right for you and then how to best introduce it. But if that's something that you are looking for help with, please reach out to Lisa and I. We'd be happy to chat with you on that. And also keep in mind, our other resources. We'll send this deck out afterwards. Any other questions? I know, looks like we have one additional one come through. How do you make sure that people aren't just giving you the answer that you want to give? That's a really good question and one that we get a lot for assessments. So the best assessments are going to provide answers that where there is no right and wrong answer. So it's not going to say, hey, here's a scenario, you're going to miss a deadline. Do you communicate or do you say nothing and miss the deadline? Like, it's not going to give you a very obvious bad and good option. It's going to give you a few different options that are all equally acceptable, and then ask which one are you most likely to do. So that's how a lot of those providers really get around the having an obvious right and wrong answer and people trying to put forward their best self. It's, again, not really that right and wrong answer, but looks like one additional one. Do you have a recommendation for the best assessment for a creative company? Ooh, is it publishing media? That's a really good question. I would say any
Yeah.
of ones that we talked about would probably offer assessments that could fit those positions. So your HireVue, your PXT, even the PI. But you would have to look and see, specifically what are your competencies, what are the positions you hire for most, and what makes sense. I would say a lot of them play well in different industries, but it's just, again, kind of based on what your strategy is and volume of hiring too. Oh, I think I went off here. Well, it looks
Oh,
like we're wrapping up. Um, so thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining today. Again, we will send out an email with the recording and the slides, and we will also launch a quick survey after this. So please take, a minute or two to take that. Lisa, any last additional things to add?
no. Thank you for attending today. And like Laura said, we'll send you the deck. And then if you do have any more questions or want to reach out to us and kind of just have an exploratory call, we'd love to help you out. And if you are looking for your next assessment vendor.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.